purposes within your chapter to help share what the takeaways are from GLF. Really, our goal in this is to just facilitate conversation about GLF, what our region took away from GLF, and really just kind of leverage the power of our region. Instead of having to do 13 different webinars, this enables us to do one, and we can share it and also capture the input and the thought leadership from our region. So hopefully, I'm sure you all will find this beneficial. So the one thing before we jump in to the different topics, I know that there's a big topic probably everyone's wanting to talk about and or get answers on. And I'll just kind of cover it briefly and let you know that answers and information is coming, and that is the Thought Leadership Institute announcement from ICF Global. So a lot of exciting news coming up. Matt, of course, Varney's on the call. I'm glad that he's here. But there's a lot of information, a lot of things that are being communicated right now and worked out. So we're all still learning about the Thought Leadership Institute. So we're looking forward to hearing what's going to be coming with that. In fact, there's a call going to be happening tomorrow with the regional leaders. The Midwest Forum call is happening tomorrow, where we'll hear a little bit more. The presidents will have time to talk to Matt and get a little bit more information on that. So be looking for details and communication. I know that ICF is going to be continually communicating in the future as those details become available. So without any further delay, we'll jump in, give everybody a chance to share your thoughts. So the one topic that I noticed that caught everybody's attention was succession planning. So I'm going to just jump to succession planning. Peter, James, I think, is on from Chicago. So Peter, we'll toss it off to you, since Erica asked if Chicago was going to go first. And I said not necessarily, but since you're here and that was one of your topics that you were interested in, let's just jump in. So succession planning, what was your takeaway?
Yeah, thank you. So much there, Zach. Appreciate that. I think Eric and I have actually discussed this a little bit since the GLF. And one of the biggest things that we're thinking of that was a big takeaway for us from GLF was committees, subcommittees for our board members, of which we don't do well right now. Our board members have a lot of the responsibility for the chapter, and as we reflect on how that's worked out historically, that sometimes can be a burden for board members when there's that much work to do, that much stuff to manage. And the option or the ability to create subcommittees under the board roles is something that can benefit both the board member, the leader, as well as the entire board and chapter overall. I think it creates more engagement, and it also probably creates better succession as you're grooming those individuals who are in the committees and therefore may move up ultimately in subsequent years. So that's one of the biggest takeaways. And I'm sure if Erica wants to chime in, she'll do so soon.
I think you said enough. I think it was great. We've talked about it. I agree.
Awesome. Eli, what's Columbus thinking as far as succession planning?
There are a couple things. I just want to focus on two quick ones, takeaways that I took, for our chapter. Number one is that you don't need to recruit people to be full-fledged board members. They can be recruited for small projects, like, hey, you'll run Ignite, or you'll run this next month thing. Rather than bring somebody, hey, you got 3-4 years, kind of scare them off from the beginning, but really recruiting people for smaller things, and then slowly as they progress, maybe inviting them to do more. The second thing is, what I thought was brilliantly said by Erica, the one that facilitated that, was to explain to volunteers actually that they're building coaching skills by volunteering. So if you're the treasurer, you're not just doing something for the chapter. You have to run your own business as a coach. You're learning how to deal with expenses and how to deal with your finances. So kind of like, hey, come to our chapter. You can develop entrepreneurship skills by doing these things. And you're also volunteering. So I thought that was a nice angle to show people, yeah, what's in it for me as well. I'm helping, but I'm also helping myself at the same time.
Great takeaway. That's awesome. Sharon from Michigan. What are you all doing in Michigan to help facilitate succession planning?
Oops, sorry, my phone had froze. One of the things that we've been talking about that came up at Global Leadership Forum that I thought was interesting was making sure that all of our roles on the board are documented, the roles and responsibilities. So, for example, does the president-elect have, roles and responsibility documented? Does the president-elect? With our chapter, we do have those things documented, those roles and responsibilities, documented, but we've talked about also updating them to make sure they reflect where we're currently at as a chapter and where we're going forward. And another big takeaway from that session for me was that I think it was Ohio Valley, I can't remember, but I believe so, where they were talking about how they do some onboarding for new board members. So, for example, they have elections at a certain time of the year, and then they allow for the new board members to kind of come on board and work with the current board members for a few months prior to the old board members transferring off the board. So it's definitely something that I've talked to just our president about, and something that we want to look at, and I want to look at going forward. How do we onboard new board members to make sure that we have a full succession plan going on, and they're being developed and they're ready to go when they start their roles.
Ray from St. Louis.
Yeah, well, to further that, we were trying to institute overlapping terms to facilitate the transfer of institutional knowledge, but all the other ideas are great as well, especially Eli's, which was my main takeaway from the series, that you just have to have small offerings and small ways to include people and allow it to get bigger, because we're not into the heavy structure with our chapter. We're into the individual recruitment phase, and the other way we push that is just individual recruiting. I ask every person on the board to find a mini-me and talk to them that way, and then get them interested in positioning them for an election. So staggering terms and individual recruitment with the promise of small size, the ability to grow, are what we're doing in St. Louis, but there are great ideas that everyone has said that we hope to institute as the chapter gets bigger with greater structure.
Awesome. Any other takeaways out there from succession planning?
The only thing I would just add to that, because I think that was a great synopsis, is building enthusiasm for the positions also. We tend to kind of get bogged down with the responsibilities of the role. And the truth is that if we build some enthusiasm and rally around it, more people are willing to support and help. And then I would just echo the opportunity to be clear on the roles and responsibilities so that follow through and accountability follow.
Awesome. Hey, Donna, while you're on and you're on the sharing mode, why don't we jump to brand stories? So we had Lovey sharing about brand stories. What was your experience?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I thought she did a great job. What an incredible, passionate, a personality she is. And, actually branding is pretty dear to my heart. I kind of grew up in that world. And, what it brought to mind really was that, all organizations, leaders, and their teams, they really do need to find a consistent voice the voice that's consistent with their actions and mission. And that goes for our nonprofit also, our local chapter. It's clear that ICF Global has a very clear brand proposition, and our local chapter also can take a lead from that. And but we're also unique too. So what is our special persona, tone, language, and purpose that we want to communicate to our community? And Lovey also gave some really great hints about social media. If we're using social media, ensure that it's useful, it's helpful. Be willing to be open and interesting, be human. And it's okay to share the small moments and the big moments. Sharing the things that you're proud of, the accomplishments. And, when you think about even your own organization, those accomplishments can be big and small, but your membership can feel really, really proud of all of those. And, whether it's just, a member or the group. And you know what, if you do something, make a mistake or something kind of falls through, say you're sorry when needed, and, don't repeat the mistake. So that was kind of it in a nutshell for me.
Yeah, that was a good recap. I really liked when she showed the picture of her being jet lagged.
Yeah.
And just being that guy. It's like, yeah, that been there. Yeah, it's awesome.
I kind of felt that.
Yeah.
I thought she was great. And the book also that she shared with everyone. So I haven't had a chance to read it myself, but I did kind of flip through it and learn a little bit too.
Awesome. Trish from Minnesota, what did y'all take away from the Brand Stories conversation?
Actually, I think Donna did a great job recapping, so I'm not going to pile on to that. I think the one thing that I remember her saying so well that just stuck out to me is when she was talking about how to brand yourself and social media and all of that. She said, what you are doing is important. And don't ever forget that. And that should be what leads you. Mm-hmm. And that struck a chord with me that, I think that when we as coaches sometimes are selling our business, et cetera, we have a hard time doing it, and we forget that what we are doing is important. And we're not selling ourselves, we're helping people to be the best that they are. So that's what I took away. Deb, did you want to add anything? I know she's on the phone. And she might be muted. Going once? Going twice? Okay.
Trish, I love that takeaway though. Like what you're doing is important. So how do you implement that into the chapter life? Like what y'all are posting and social media. Donna's talking about social media and website stuff. So any thoughts on how do you implement that mindset and what we're doing like as chapters is important?
Yeah, I think that more to come on that as we have board meetings, et cetera. But that is something that we're going to talk about at our next board meeting, which is on August. Hello, it's April. On April 26th. So we're going to be talking about that and how do we really get that across. So thanks for asking that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else have any feedback on just that thought of the brand story of what you're doing is important?
Well, Zach, I'd like to just add that when we were listening to her, to Levy, she said to post a question. So that's something that I took back from that, is that asking a question, so saying, so I think that's how we're going to try and implement it. We've talked about it in our chapter when we came back, of asking a question after we say we've done something. So not just putting it out there, but just asking for input and asking our followers, asking our membership some sort of question that's kind of an add-on. I don't know that we're doing that. We're just posting stuff, I think. And so we're going to try and get better at asking that question. And we're coaches. We should be asking questions, right? So it's kind of should be innate, but I mean, it's not something we've been doing in the past. So.
Awesome. So Peter, while you're on, and we're talking about doing things with importance, tonight was a topic of conversation. Campus conversations, doing things that are important in our community, specifically as it relates to the education initiative with Ignite. So you want to share about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing that I took away is we do projects in our chapter currently, and with the help of Trish, clarifying that I was not aware, and I took this away, that if you're going to do an Ignite project, which is a pro bono project out in the community where coaches go out, obviously, and provide our wonderful services to organizations, that those individuals that would be a part of an actual Ignite project must be certified coaches, and not just going through coaches training is enough. As Trish and I talked, it's got to be an ACC or above, that they have that credential. And I was not aware of that going into it. We've done a lot of pro bono work in our community in Pittsburgh here locally, but those wouldn't qualify. And so that's something that we're going to think about as we go forward, that making sure that we, we want to be probably more a little deliberate or more intentional about how we choose and what our next round of projects would be.
Yeah, I can maybe jump in on that thought too, because we are looking at an Ignite project here in the Cleveland area that is a significant, actually working with the Cleveland Metropolitan School District, and they've actually been doing some restructuring of their staff to facilitate more coaching opportunities in their in the organization itself. But so that topic came up of, okay, we have coaches that are not ACC, haven't renewed, but are well-trained coaches, definitely have more than enough, they have probably more hours of training and experience and current coaching than some of our ACCs do. So how do we involve them? And so we kind of run parallel projects. We have our Ignite initiative where we track the Ignite, where we will be tracking the Ignite component of that, but we're also paralleling a non-Ignite initiative where we're still encouraging coaches to offer pro bono services and use their skill. It just looks a little different, but we do more internal tracking. Like, we don't obviously run that through ICF or Ignite, but it is part of our pro bono hours. So when we report our pro bono work, that is part of the pro bono work that we're reporting. So just a thought.
Excellent. Yeah.
Any other input out there about anybody doing an Ignite project?
Actually, Zach, can I ask you a question? Would it be worth pairing with more experienced coaches with some of them that are still in training and allowing them to team coach with the Ignite project?
I'm sorry, I lost part of that.
Yeah, I think a little weak here today. It's the internet's unstable. And would it be worth pairing up? You don't qualify because they don't have that level of experience, and just allowing them to team coach a little bit?
Oh, I got you. That's a great question for Stephanie, or if Matt is on and knows the answer, feel free to jump in.
So the question is, if you have people who don't qualify under the Ignite standards to participate in a chapter level pro bono coaching? Was that the question, Bonnie?
Well, I think that experience if they wanted to do it.
Sorry, you cut out a little bit.
Yeah, let me type it. Okay.
I would say in Nebraska, we did a pro bono. We had 7 coaches that worked with a nonprofit, and all of them, I believe, were credentialed by ICF. There were a couple that weren't, but the whole process from beginning to end was an incredible opportunity to learn, and it gave there was a lot of learning experiences. We even had a mentor that that supported any of the coaches when they had any issues or questions, or like a person to go to that kind of oversaw it also. So it is a training opportunity from that respect.
Yeah, I got your question now, Bonnie, as well. And to Donna's point, that experience is great for those who may not meet these benchmarks yet, but maybe looking towards that as an opportunity going forward. I know the Ignite projects are pretty strict in guidelines from a standards, but also an opportunity to be able to connect these with the goals that they're measured up against, which are those UN's 2020 goals for sustainable society and so many different things. So there are criteria that they're looking to adhere to align with those 2020 goals. But that being said, Donna's talking about an event that the chapter did, and these are Ignite's criteria. If the chapter, we know there are a lot of things going on at the chapter level in this pro bono and uplifting local society thing that, the criteria in those opportunities are largely up to the chapter. So we absolutely recognize you may have ACCs that are relatively new. You may have PCCs who are relatively new to coaching, and you may have people who don't have a credential who have been doing things for 15 years and they just haven't taken that step. So identifying the criteria locally, I think, is really interesting and is being explored in a number of different ways. Those Ignite projects are kind of specific in their requirements.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. Appreciate that. Donna, so switching gears here from pro bono work to not pro bono.
Exactly.
How do we make money?
Well, the whole non-membership revenue compass conversation I thought was amazing. It's almost way too much to even talk about because there were so many incredible ideas. And I think that was the beauty of it, that there's so many opportunities to be creative about how you work it at the chapter level. And, I think that for our chapter, especially, kind of a takeaway is, we've got to get some operating things in order and some standards in order in the way we work, and then fold in some of the added value opportunities. What are the priorities for us that are going to make the biggest difference to help us grow and manage and so on. But just the idea also of partnerships and sponsorships. We're doing some workshops, or actually we're doing a conference, and we have a local organization here that's for professional development. So we have an exhibit booth that we're at, that we're pushing. We're not pushing, I'm sorry, that we're going to be communicating the power of coaching through. So the idea is, connecting with other organizations within the community, and then having other coaches rally around that also and feeling good about what they're doing. And then, the more those kind of things are out there, the more enticing membership is also. So, partnering with, the OD network, training association, SHRM, and then also just, what can we do for our members? Everything from, welcoming them, being ambassadors, being a mentor. So what else can we be doing for our membership to add value to what, you know, our local chapter is all about? That's it for the moment.
Awesome. Who else on non-member dues? Anyone currently doing any projects or any work at generating other sources of revenue?
In Michigan, we had our board meeting a couple of days ago, and we did talk about how do we want to handle non-member dues going forward. Like, for example, if somebody contacts us about wanting to advertise with us, rather in our newsletter, or any events that we have. So where we left it is we're going to be putting together some framework on what that looks like going forward. We haven't really necessarily had that in the past, and now is the excellent time for us, just because we've kind of some more opportunities have come up for us, and we're also focusing right now on having more strategic partnerships with employers, with different organizations, and so forth as well. So we're currently crafting what that's going to look like for our chapter going forward from a governance perspective.
Sharon, this is Trish Perry from Minnesota. We can share with you our strategy on that and what our price points are and all of that, because we have done that for at least for the advertising within our newsletter, et cetera, so that you have that.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Definitely. If you could, I'll give my information in a chat box and could share.
Okay, thanks.
Trish, I would love that information too. That conversation has come up at our board meetings, and I'd just like to kind of have a framework or an understanding of what other chapters might be doing.
Yeah, I'll just put it out on the, I want to call it the boardwalk. What's it called, Zach?
Base camp?
The what?
Base camp?
Base camp, yeah.
The boardwalk, I love that.
No, I don't know why. Anyway, sorry.
Thanks,
Sure.
Hey, Trish, while you're on the topic, can you share a little bit about what Minnesota's doing when it comes to non-member revenue?
Well, there is a question also about what is member revenue, right? So we have members who are members of Global and also members of ICF. We have members who are not ICF Global members, who we call colleagues. We have started a student membership, which has actually been very good for us, and we have about 15 student members now. And that is revenue that we had never had before. So it's half price of what a colleague is, but it really gets that student into our ICF meetings so that when they do become coaches, then they become full members. So I just share that because if you don't have a student membership, it's something that you might want to think about. We've just instituted it in the last, within the last 2 years. And then we have our corporate memberships. So that's a whole question about what is membership, right? And then we've had a lot more people who have been interested in advertising with us, which is why we put together that that strategy about what does that look like, what are the requirements, how much does it cost to advertise with us. We also have sponsorships, and those sponsors then their information is put on the tables at speaker events, etc. But they pay, whether you call it partnerships or sponsorships, we're changing those names. But they pay a yearly fee to be able to, they're in our Catalyst newsletter, they're on the tables when we have in-person meetings. They're able to speak about any of their events at the meetings. So that's another piece.
Awesome. Thanks, Trish.
Sure.
Helpful. You mentioned the word partnerships, sponsorships, those strategic relationships. So, Peter, I know that this was something that was a takeaway for Chicago. You want to speak to partnerships?
Yeah, partnerships for us is twofold. Definitely partnerships like this with other chapters in order to learn the do's and don'ts, what's good and bad, what's worked and what hasn't worked. And even with chapters around the world to see how we could partner together, exchange events, speakers, things like that. But also, as Trish had mentioned, I think that was Trish who mentioned about partnerships with for-profit and non-for-profit organizations. I know that's been a goal of mine for this calendar year, which hasn't gone as smoothly as I would have liked to seen it go so far, but it's still an objective I'd like to achieve where we're almost showcasing coaching to Chicago and Chicago organizations, again, whether they're nonprofit or for-profit. So that's a goal of ours. We're trying to do this with our International Coaching Week. We're having challenges identifying organizations, but again, this is we're slowly but surely trying to chip away at the whole partnerships framework.
Awesome. So I'm hearing there's two terms: partnerships with strategic relationships, and then partnership as far as income and sponsorships. Sharon, jumping back to what y'all are doing in Michigan, I know you talked a little bit about developing those sponsorships. What all was your takeaway from GLF, and what are you doing to develop sponsorships?
So I think the biggest takeaway that I had was that there are opportunities, a lot of opportunities that are available to create those strategic partnerships and also increase chapter revenue in doing so. So really what I took back to my board, one is what we were already working on, or some of the new board members were asking, was just, how do we handle advertising right now? What is our governance around it? Meaning, how will we allow people to advertise? Can they only allow advertise in the newsletter? Can they only, advertise at certain events? So we're going to be continuing to do more of that work. And then definitely, I think it was good conversation around the strategic partnerships, because that's really a theme that our chapter president, Jackie, has for our chapter this year. And I'm going to continue it next year to say, how do we continue to build partnerships through our community, through our members, through other organizations. We are having an event on May 2nd where we are bringing in employers that already have an established coaching culture to talk to our members and other people within the community about what they're doing at their organization. And also our members are going to be talking about things that they're currently doing as well. So I think that's a great segue. We're also having an annual conference this year where we're going to be capitalizing and talking more and more about those partnerships and strengthening them as well. So it was just a good time to become aware of what other chapters are doing so that we can implement it into our chapter going forward, especially since that's going to be the vision and focus really for us over these next couple of years.
Awesome. That was a lot of inspiration that came from the partnership conversations.
Yes.
Awesome.
Hey, Zach.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to do this over, but Deb is on that 612 number. She can't unmute herself to be able to participate.
She is unmuted.
Thank you.
Yeah. Deb, do you have something to add?
Yep, I'm here. I've been
there
here
you go.
since 5-2.
Hi, Deb.
Hi, I've been trying to talk, but it's not working.
Well, now it is. What, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think Sharon did a great job. I think this, the strategic partnerships is a big deal. And we certainly saw that in the breakout session as it related to some of the chapters, for instance, LA and New York, much bigger venues for them. But I think the whole consistency there and going after that really makes a lot of sense.
Awesome. Thanks, Deb. Feel free to jump in. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened there.
No worries.
So then one of the less popular topics, I guess, that we all enjoy talking about, and that's the ethics side of it. Most people tend to tune out when you start saying ethics, but it was a great conversation on ethics and really spurred some conversation. I don't know about y'all's sessions. I know in ours there was a lot of conversation being had about ethics. So Ray, what was your insight from the ethics conversation?
Well, ethics seemed to be the one thing that, above everything else, distinguished ICF members from everyone else in coaching, is that we have a strong ethical code. We all vow to adhere to it, and no one who's not an ICF member has that. Although everyone probably expects that everyone would adhere to an ethical code, it's nice to have one written down because it resolves disputes. And with regard to disputes, it looks like there's a dispute resolution board in place where if there are clients who for some reason are not happy with whatever services a coach provides, they have some recourse if the coach is an ICF member. And it's nice to know that's there, not because, hopefully because no one would want it, but also because there's a board in place that can answer a lot of advisory questions in case questions do come up. Now, it seemed like it was suggested during the talk that there was a lot of discretion as to what was an ethical issue and what wasn't, and as to its resolution within the chapters themselves. And that seemed to almost be what was preferred. But it's nice to know that there are other places to go in addition to chapters, former chapter presidents and leaders, and others, so that we can find out from ICF itself and from experts who deal with really nothing but this as to what is what ICF's position is on things and what they know others have done in similar situations. So I guess the main takeaway is ethics are important as a distinguishing factor for ICF members, and ICF Global has an incredible number of resources to answer questions and opinions to keep anything from hopefully getting serious. But when things do get serious, they also have experts to help work toward favorable resolutions among all parties.
Awesome.
Jump in now, sir?
Yeah, jump in, Eli.
I'll just jump in. Yeah, a couple things that I thought are worthy to record in this conversation is, number one, the importance of bylaws. It is crucial, and it's something that a lot of chapters don't like dealing with because it takes a long time and effort, is really trying to have ethical codes of how each chapter functions. We saw that from that lady from Austin, that there were no bylaws and a lot of havoc happened. How to remove a board member, how to remove a member, how to do this, what happened to this, what's descriptions of the positions. The better documentation, the fewer problems. Kind of like in coaching, the better agreement you have, the fewer problems and questions happen afterward. And that's just something that our chapter spent almost the entire year last year dealing and revising our bylaws to really get them crystal clear. So that's one thing. The second thing is really kind of comes out of this, is to really try to solve ethical problems in the chapter locally. I think ICF Global, from their point of view, their IRB, the review board, is really made for coaches and clients and people that have issues with that, or other coaches. Ethical problems really should be dealt with. They had a 4-tier process. First, review the chapter documents, hence the bylaws, then have a board meeting, Have a panel investigation. They also recommended another point is having an ethical panel on every board of 2 or 3 members, and in large chapters, maybe 6 or 7 members. And then if nothing works for whatever, then refer to ICF Global, because ICF Global takes a long time and it's a lot of volunteer work and investigation. So, and number 3 is to consult other chapters when something happens. Hey, I heard it happen in your chapter or whatever. How did you resolve it? What did you do? What do your bylaws look like? So those are some of our takeaways.
Awesome. That was great. Peter in Pittsburgh, do y'all have anything to add? I mean, I know those were comprehensive reviews.
Yeah, I mean, I think they both Ray and Eli did a great job summarizing, and I'll just reiterate what Ray said around what I heard was that you really want to try and resolve a lot of these concerns that are internal to your board, possibly, and I like the way you said it, Ray, that the ethics code can be for clients, that dispute resolution board for clients that are bringing concerns or ethical concerns. When we're having internal board concerns and maybe some challenges and things like that, that it really trying to resolve that at the local level, like you said, Ray, is what I took away. So,
does anybody in our region, does anyone have a ethics process or board or anything that handles ethical issues? Do you have a process in place for that?
We let our governance board in Pittsburgh, we have a governance board formed, and they, and Erlene's on the call on this webinar, and she's a part of it. And we tend to filter any ethical concerns around our chapter through that board, our governance board.
Anyone else?
We have a document that we give to board members to sign, basically, that at the beginning of the board that they'll adhere to, ethical standards. So, I mean, that kind of just reminds everybody that we need to be more transparent. To my knowledge, we haven't had any issues come up, but it would, we would probably refer it to the executive committee to take a look at first. But we do have pretty tight bylaws.
This is Erica in Chicago. One of the things I got from that also, the ethics thing, was just the stronger you have in the onboarding process, which includes like talking about the ethics, talking about, kind of the policies and things that are in place, that it seems to help people understand their role a little bit, and maybe will help with some retention throughout the year. And then the other thing was, is that it was mentioned for everyone to sign some kind of ethics statement or conflict of interest or some kind of statement, whether even if they're doing like pro bono stuff for the Ignite program or any type of capacity that they're working or volunteering as part of or representing ICF, that they should sign that document. So I know that in our chapter, the board does it, but we don't always necessarily have all the other auxiliary people doing that. That's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Erica. Anyone else have any ethical processes in place for your chapters? Awesome. Any other takeaways, maybe things that haven't been discussed that you found enriching or inspiring or maybe challenging from GLF?
I think the biggest thing for me is the relation for all our members, for all these chapters in the Midwest, is the relationships that we've all developed while we were in Dublin with each other, so that you can be rest assured that we're all talking with one another and bouncing ideas and brainstorming and talking. And I've gotten to know a lot of you, and I really appreciate the relationships that I formed with each of you out there. But just having that sounding board so that we can continue to better our chapters each individually, but also holistically as the Midwest region overall, I think is something that I really took away and appreciate.
I agree. Thank you, Peter.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree.
Beautifully said, Peter.
Yep, excellent.
I just want to add one thing, Zach, and that is that to use the regional structure as well, because, if there's an issue and we're not sure, and maybe another chapter had it, Matt and Kendra are available. I called Matt last year about some issue, and he just, supported me and just kind of calmed me down and kind of focused, and the thing was resolved pretty quickly. But, that's what they're there for. So if you need, encouragement or an idea or someone to talk to, they're there.
I appreciate you saying that, Eli. And I know that's, we feel that when we come out of GLF too, is that we are all working towards this common goal, and we're all working together, and we're so much stronger together than individually. So as Eli said, we're always here for you. And it's not just Kendra and I, we actually have this whole, ICF system behind us too. So if we don't know, we can find someone who does. And then it's also a way to plug into that global network. So that doesn't stop when we leave the Global Leaders Forum. You all have access to every one of those great people that you met in Dublin and their whole boards and their whole chapters. And, it's tremendous. It's such a great way to visualize that global aspect of ICF at GLF, but only a few of us get to do that every year, so to be able to transfer that message and connect people to that when we come home is amazing, because I know sometimes when it's really eye-opening to feel how global ICF is at times. And sometimes it's challenging because we get focused on what's happening locally, and we're busy, and time is of the essence, and it's super scarce. And so the times that we can touch on that is really amazing. So really appreciate that. Also, and this was highlighted too at the beginning too. One part of that GLF was that announcement. So I don't know if we have time at the end of this. I know the agenda for tomorrow is pretty full as well, but if there were any questions, and Zach, I know you've kind of run through all the topics of GLF. That was highlighted twice during there. But if there's anything that I can highlight or answer any questions you might have today, and we can of course continue that tomorrow as it fits into that phone call for sure.
That'd be awesome. I mean, we've got 10 minutes left on our slated time, so maybe you could take the time and just maybe give us obviously we can't go great detail in 10 minutes, but maybe you could share some insight.
Yeah, and also I have links to those 2 calls that were hosted by Magda and Jean-Francois to dig into that a little bit further, and there's a slide presentation. So if anybody didn't get a chance to touch on that, let me know, and I can send you a link to those, because those do go into it in a bit more depth, and you see other people's questions and things like that. So Bonnie, do you have a question?
Matt, this is Trish. Those calls were where more questions came from our chapter than clarifying.
Gotcha.
So I appreciate you saying go out and look at that, but that's when I got the flurry of emails and calls of I don't get it.
Gotcha.
So just so you, like I said, it might just be a Minnesota thing that we just didn't get it, but.
No, we're not gonna single Minnesota out like that. You are not alone, and part of that really comes from all of you experienced that live at GLF. It's and many people experience that on the call too. It's because it's kind of bringing everybody in at the beginning of some of these discussions. So most of the things I think that are kind of confusing at this point are things that are in development or just aren't known yet. But if I can summarize real quick, and you mentioned TLI, you mentioned the Thought Leader Institute, that's one of a couple organizations that are happening in the future here. And so still under the flag of ICF, the International Coach Federation, a unique focus is being placed on, of course, the existing membership organization. What happens now, what's happening now, the community that's happening under ICF stays the same, but that's an organization. So that's a focus. The foundation is already a separate organization under that ICF flag. So we've already got 2 in existence. Credentialing and program accreditation are things that are already happening, but in order to meet those ISO global standards for credentialing bodies, there's a lot of requirements, and they have to be exclusive from some of these other pieces of ICF. So when we're talking about credentialing, that's going to be a separate organization in name. It's going to have its own leadership. It's going to have its own focus, and that allows it to be exclusive from what could be perceived to be conflict of interest or connections to membership. And those things are already exclusive in what we're doing, but it's going to be a separate organization. And program accreditation, the same thing. So right now program accreditation is happening under ICF, but sometimes there's that question of, oh, well, ICF is doing these things to alter or change or elevate the standards for credentialing and program accreditation. It can feel like to some that we're kind of gaming the system, right? We're kind of setting ourselves up for success. So, and that's part of the ISO standards too, is to set those exclusive from any of these other potential influencers. We're not doing that, but some people think we are. And so the ISO standards are to set them apart to say, you know, these are very exclusive. And again, those will be separate organizations, separate from each other, exclusive, but still connected in this family organization model that we've been talking about. TLI is one, and then the other one. So we've actually got 6 when we're talking about new organizations on the horizon that are all under ICF. It's a unique focus, individual boards of directors for each of these groups. Great potential for volunteer opportunities in the form, because what we want to is to be able to, so let me step back for just a second. All 6 of those focuses are things that ICF is doing right now. These are all things that ICF is doing right now in different ways. What we're looking to do is deep dive into each of these and have an exclusive team to focus on those so that we can blow them up and reach the potential we know is out there. The last one I missed was coaching and organization. So there are there's a lot of coaching going on within organizations. There are a lot of people who are trained in coaching skills, but would never call themselves a professional coach. We've got managers and leaders being trained in coaching skills that are managers and leaders primarily. We've got coaching cultures on the rise within organizations and training being developed within organizations, which is a very specific conversation that is not currently taking its own stage within the ICF universe right now. So all that to say, this is on the horizon. It's things that are coming up. It's things that are happening. And it's things that we're developing very specific narratives around so that ICF can continue to be the most global gold standard for coaching as it's happening around the world in a variety of different ways. So that's really what the focus is in creating these and the unique focuses on each of those to continue doing what we're doing, but dive into a little deeper. I don't know if that was more complicated than what the calls. I wasn't on either of them. I'm sorry about that. But
actually, Matt, could you just make that statement to everyone? Because what you said and what you clarified is not what I heard at GLF, and it's not what I read in those documents, and it is so much more clear to me now.
Okay, good.
So,
thank you for that. I appreciate that.
So Trish, if I could just ask, what was the issue of clarity? What were some of the questions that were brought up? Can you answer that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the questions was, I don't get it.
Right.
Aren't we already doing this? What's different?
Yeah.
Those kind of questions. The second question was, what do they mean we're doing new organizations? Does that mean they won't be part of ICF? Wasn't clear.
Yeah.
And the third was back to the first, I just don't get it. I mean, that's pretty much what people said. So, like I said, it might be a Minnesota thing.
No.
Willing to take that on.
I will say it's absolutely a global thing, and Minnesota is representing that global membership. So that is, it is. So we're currently working with project managers. We're currently working with a branding company to really get that language clear. And I think part of the necessary ambiguity of defining these things before they're defined led to not saying enough in the interest of not saying too much. And so that really is kind of where I feel like a lot of people have landed with it. But no, I think some of these conversations are going to be really helpful to continue that. That being said, this is going to be a kind of a labor of love over time. It's not something that's going to happen tomorrow. It's not, things are going to happen over a little bit of time. And as subject matter experts of the ICF universe, all of our volunteers, all of our chapters, all of our members are incredibly valuable stakeholders in where we're going. So there's going to be an opportunity to throw your name in the hat for volunteering. There's going to be additional boards of directors under this ICF flag. There's going to be additional leadership opportunities, research opportunities, just to plug into this into a number of different ways. That's really exciting. So that's the other part to that too. As it grows, we're going to keep you really informed, hopefully clearer, but to also make these things known and available to you, how you can be a part of this in the best way possible, and how this, naturally when you announce any kind of change, the first question is, what's in it for me? How's this gonna change what I'm doing? And so those are the things we really want to be clear with on everybody, and how you can be a part of that change. And yeah.
Donna, the other question, just to clarify, was they just wondered what's in it for me.
Yeah.
How does this change what I do every day?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions too, and frankly, I did not have a chance to listen in on it. So all of this has given me a lot of clarity. So I can't wait to just kind of continue to be part of that conversation and hear more about it.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
You bet. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for being a part of the conversation. We've had a great time today. I hope everybody was able to get some takeaways and share insight. And I'll be sending out this recording link to everyone so that you can use this with your boards and your chapters. And again, thanks for your time. Thanks for your input. It was a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach.
Thanks for organizing it, Zach.
See you tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
Tomorrow.